I'm Alex.
I'm James.
And I'm Dan.
We're the Ragamuffins, and this is episode 25 of the Ragamuffin Music Podcast. It's a place for us to talk about the music we love. Every month we get together, talk about the latest news, music and trends in the world of alternative music.
That was brilliant.
Oh, that there. Alex, you fucking killed that. I'll continue this in a second, but...
That's the best you've ever done, that.
Is it?
Look at you. You are a professional.
I think it's because, for break the fourth wall for the listener, we're sat at a desk with the mics on little stands. We're switching it up this episode. We've got the mics in our hands. And I'm just relaxed on the sofa, so maybe I'm just comfortable.
Do you know what I will tell them? I'll tell them what's happening on this episode.
Let's hear what's happening on the episode.
We've got a tetralogy of songs from Sleep Token that we review. Oh, God.
Sorry. What did you just say?
A tetralogy of songs.
Start that again, because that really took me by surprise.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it one more time.
When you said
Okay.
tetralogy.
So, reviewing this month, a tetralogy of songs from Sleep Token, plus other singles from Enter Shikari and Fall Out Boy.
Did you get a thesaurus for Christmas?
I didn't know. I know the word. I had to think a little bit. I was like, trilogy's 3. I was like, it's tetralogy 4. I had to have a little bit of a think, but I got it.
Every day's a school day.
It is.
Yeah, very impressive. The learning doesn't stop when you leave school, clearly. And Dan, what are we discussing at the end of the episode?
We're going to be discussing which band is going to have the best 2023.
Lovely, but first, let's look at some news. As I was doing that intro, the two of you, I could see in the look in your eyes, you were both like, fucking hell. That's the best he's ever hosted this.
Keep going.
Yeah,
Keep going.
He's a professional. Right, the news.
Well, we do one live podcast, and now look at us.
Yeah, I didn't even do it.
You weren't even there. Well, you there, but you know.
First up, Panic at the Disco have broken up.
Isn't that just Brendan?
Yeah, you can't really break up a band that's one person.
Yeah.
Brendan Urie's packed it in, basically. No.
Does he have that conversation in the mirror?
Yeah. Oi, listen, mate. This isn't working. No, him and his wife are expecting a child. God bless, congratulations. So this final UK and Europe tour will be the last one after 20 years.
I mean, I respect the fact that he's dropped the worst album of his career and then dipped.
Ouch.
Yeah, well, it was fucking awful. Fair play.
But I'd also respect that he's had a lot of bangers throughout quite a long career and defined, I think, a lot of people's music tastes. So,
yeah, should we maybe all say what our favourite Panic at the Disco song is as a sort of farewell to the band?
Does James know any?
Pass.
Oh, fucking hell.
9 in the afternoon.
Interesting. That's a good pick. I quite like, what's it even called? This Is Gospel. I quite like. Alright, Sins is obviously a classic, but yeah.
I don't recognise any of those you mentioned.
Alright, Sins you must know.
Nope.
I chimed in with a haven't you people ever heard
Okay, know that. Wouldn't have been able to tell you the song name though.
That's
It
fine.
turns out Brendan has decided to close the goddamn door.
Hey.
In other news, Pantera's appearance at German rock festivals have been they've been removed from the lineup of 2 German rock festivals.
Rock and Ring and Rock and Park, if I'm correct in thinking.
You are correct indeed. This is over outcry over Phil Anselmo's previous racist remarks. So, fully understandable, fully respect the organisers within those 2 festivals in Germany to remove them from the lineup. It sort of calls into question, like, is this thing going to struggle to get off the ground before it's even really started? Do you know what I mean? Like, this could potentially be the first of many times where they're removed from a lineup for whatever reason.
I'm surprised there hasn't been more of this already. Like, they've had from what I gather, the US tour that's happened. And I think that's the start of their European dates it was meant to be. And I thought there'd be a bit of a kick up in Europe a bit more, but it doesn't seem like this had been mentioned as much. And now that it's happening, I am expecting more. I think as much as there was people anticipating them being announced for download as well, maybe it was definitely something on the download organisers' minds of like a clever idea not to have them involved, because the fuss that could have been kicked up and the uproar could have really backfired.
I think when one festival starts to kind of, when one festival commits to kicking them off the lineup, it's then just a case of other festivals and other organisers or people that have booked them are going to look at themselves and think, maybe that's what we should be doing. Maybe this isn't such a great idea.
The one really to watch out for would be that Metallica tour. That's probably something to keep of note, because if that happens and festivals are dropping them off, them being, I think, one of the main supports for a run of those dates, that could be very interesting to see if Metallica keep them, if there's any kickback on that, and how that proceeds.
And in last bit of news, a 1975 fan has accidentally bought a cameo from Matt Heafy of Trivium instead of Matt Healy. The cameo was bought for someone's friend to celebrate the start of the new year, and they were surprised when they thought they found Matt Healy on Cameo and made the purchase, without really thinking it through. The guy thought, no way he's doing cameos for $75. That is wild. That is wild. And enjoyed a message from Matt Heafy of Trivium instead. Amazing.
I mean, two very different looking people. So as soon as he saw that now bald head,
yeah,
he would have been very surprised and just be like, hey, there is something not quite right here.
He's not the only person to be confused between the two, though, is he? Or are they?
I thought this was going to come up. Me, you're talking about. I saw a tweet where basically Matt Heafy and the recent Trivium UK tour had shouted out a load of prominent and up-and-coming heavy bands in the UK scene, bands like Harriet, Malevolence, among others. And I read that tweet as Matt Healy had done that on the 1975's tour, and
which would have been incredible.
It would have been insane that they'd finished playing Robbers and
they get Taylor Swift out and they're like, big up Harriet,
listen to Profound Morality. It boggled my mind for days, and then the penny dropped. So I went, oh, hang on,
I got this wrong.
It was not Matt Healy that said that. So easy mistake to make, I say.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Should we talk about some album recommendations then?
Let's.
Regular listeners of the podcast will know that we end every episode with an album recommendation and start the next episode by talking about those recommendations. But as it is the start of the new year, we thought we'd do something a bit different. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look back at the year that was, all the albums that we recommend each other, and say our favourites from each of us, which I thought would be just really cute. So shall we?
Go on then.
James, you recommended a lot. It was usually of the heavier persuasion, as is your taste.
Yep.
And I think my favourite one was Bury Tomorrow's Cannibal.
Interesting.
They've been a band that I've been meaning to get into for a very, very long time, and usually I'm quite daunted by a band that has a huge discography because it's you sort of don't even know where to start. So you recommending that for me was a really great jumping off point to get into Bury Tomorrow. And now I'm very, very excited for the new album. So yeah, loved it.
See, my favourite recommendation that James gave was the Survivor's Guilt mixtape by Kenny Hoopla, but it's one I was already familiar with. So instead I'm going to go for Fault by Alpha Wolf. Again, a band that I think the three of us have all got into since the split EP with Holding Absence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're just relentlessly heavy, but in the right times, if that makes sense. They don't go just overboard with it. A lot of bands, it's quite easy for them to just throw heavy music at you, but these guys kind of just do it in a reserved but brutal manner. Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed it.
From you, Dan, my favourite recommendation, you recommended some absolute bops throughout.
Yeah, I did.
But I'm going to have to pick one, and it comes from the same episode that James recommended Bury Tomorrow, and that's Basement's Colour Me in Kindness. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I should have listened to Basement more before Outbreak. I'm an idiot, but I am in love with that album, in love with that band, and thank you very much for recommending it to me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I think for you, Dan, most of your recommendations have felt like in ways to push my musical boundaries as well, in terms of being something usually very different and something I wouldn't necessarily go to. There's a lot of different ones that I think I found interesting for different reasons, but the main one that stood out to me going back over it all was Death is a Warm Blanket by Microwave. Although that probably fits in a little bit more with my musicality and what I listen to, I remember the drum sound in particular just standing out and that instant appeal from the get-go. Just the way it was produced, I think overall as the album, but for that drum sound in particular, I can hear any album, and maybe it's not my cup of tea, but if the drum sounds intriguing, that will get me anyway. But the fact that it was surrounded by some great songs, great musicality throughout that, it just helped and added it, and really, really stood out. It was a strong one.
Thanks, guys. I think my favourite recommendation that Alex gave was Somewhere Nowhere by 100th.
Nice.
It's just something a little bit different. It had loads of different influences on there, and when you think about the fact that they used to kind of be a hardcore band, and then they're kind of branching off and almost being quite brave in just going, nah, we're not about that anymore, and just making music like this instead. I think it's really, really cool. And it's a perfect album to just stick on in the background while you're doing some work or just chilling out or something.
Yeah, definitely. It was quite liberating as a fan as well to just be like, sort of fully let yourself go along for the ride, because it was, for a lot of people, it can be very easy when a band switches up, especially to that degree, to just be like, fuck this, not interested. But I find myself sort of like, I don't know, like just surrendering to it and just hopping along for the ride, and very happy that I did, because I really like that album and I love the band now still. So glad you liked it.
For me, it was one that it kind of was released and I listened to very briefly, but after you recommending it a little bit later and seeing some of their music live, it was one that once I gone back to, I enjoyed much more, and that was Malicious Intent by Malevolence. It seemed a little bit like that album kind of passed us by a little bit, because I don't think we ended up reviewing it when it came out that month in the podcast. And part of the whirlwind of the rise of Malevolence last year, like I think seeing them, 3 times in a very, very quick succession with like the Architect Show, Slam Dunk, I think it was, and Download, if I'm right. I'm not 100%, but I know there was 3.
Not sure about Slam Dunk.
Not Slam Dunk, Outbreak.
Oh, yeah,
that's
Slam
what it
Dunk
was.
2021 they were at.
But seeing them like 3 times in like the quick succession, and the energy that fans had live that still exists right now, that you're seeing clips online with them supporting Trivium and the Circle Pit, so absolutely fucking insane still. The energy people have, the rise that they've had, it's all down to a phenomenal release in Malicious Intent. So yeah, definitely now watching out for them a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, it was very much seeing them live that I think really got me sold on Malevolence, and then going back and already having an album there ready to like listen to, dive straight into and know the songs from seeing them live was really, really good.
Awesome, nice. It's fun. Like, I mean, the whole reason that we do this is because we just love talking about music together. So it's nice to sort of look back on all the things that we've shared with each other, and like even just doing the prep for this, seeing the sheer number of albums and new music that we've all shared with each other has been really cool. So here's to more of it in the new year.
Big ups us.
And for the listener at home, the recommendations are as much for you as it is for us. So at the end of this episode, we'll recommend 3 albums. Make sure you check them out as well. But for now, let's talk about some new music. Should we talk about Sleep Token?
Who?
Oh, just the 4 songs, please.
Yeah, everyone's talking about them at the moment, so we may as well join in, I guess.
Shall we start at the beginning?
Yes, let's.
So the first song they released was Chokehold. What do we think after not hearing some music for them for quite a while, and this kind of coming out of nowhere, unless you kind of knew people in the right places on like the Discord channels, you weren't expecting this at all. So what did you think when you first heard it?
It was exactly what I expected it to sound like, but it was still really exciting, if that makes sense. And it still it was unpredictable in a predictable way. Do you know what I mean? I guess because the only thing that there is to expect from them is that it's going to be unexpected, I suppose, which I know is sort of a silly thing to say, but I think just to have a song that starts particularly just with such a strong emphasis on his vocals, and it, like a lot of their songs, it's a slow burn, big build up to get to where it's going, but the journey is always as important as the destination with Sleep Token songs, and it's just a song that is, funny enough, the song has me in a chokehold because I'm listening to it all the time. Yeah, I think it was the perfect choice to sort of kickstart the new era, and I loved it.
I think this song would make a really great Bond theme.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, it's kind of got that kind of cool, like, almost sexy, just chilled out, but also kind of
got a bit of sneakiness,
spooky and sneaky. It's just such a cool song. And I think one of the main reasons that Sleep Token songs are so addictive is, I think, the vocal melody. Like the even if it hurts me a bit on this, like the I think that's what kind of hooks people in. You've got other genres like metalcore. People are brought in for like the call to the mosh pit kind of bit before a breakdown. Pop punk, it's all about the hooks and the angry finger pointing. With whatever Sleep Token are doing, it's all about that vocal melody. and I think that's what's hooking people in and getting people addicted.
I mean, there's not much else to add apart from that, to be honest. Like from what you said, there's that wonderful ambience and atmospheric intro that I feel also just kind of pulls you in, and something you kind of get to know with Sleep Token is that they have those moments, and it's that build, that anticipation that really knows like you're in for something great as well. I don't think you can ever really go into it feeling disappointed knowing that there's a Sleep Token single coming out and what to expect. You'll see it's dropped, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, whatever it is, and you're like, okay, I'm in for something here. You know it's going to be good and you're not going to be let down. I love the instrumentation in particular of this, especially the drum work. It feels like it's just a really strong driving force. Just as soon as it kind of all comes in, starting off with the crash cymbal, and then that slight move across to the China cymbal and just dropping the beat slightly. It just has so much power behind it, and just such a strong track, and a great way to kind of set off this album cycle.
The next song we got after that was The Summoning. Heavy, heavy, heavy.
We like
chunky,
heavy.
chunky, chunky. Very fun. Sorry.
Chunky times 3.
Chunky times 3. What do you guys think of it?
So,
Love it.
what are they doing?
Chunky.
What do they think they're doing, man? Like, they literally just do whatever they want. They've put out just heavy, heavy, heavy. There's like some outrageously heavy parts to this, like some driving double bass, like incredible riffs, just breakdown after breakdown, and then I don't know what they're doing at the end, but I love it.
Bring in the funk.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? But like, again, like some people could probably say that it's out of place or jarring, but it's like once you've heard it once, I think you fully accept and understand why it's there and enjoy it.
The second time you're grooving.
Yeah.
I think
you're down for it.
To new Sleep Token fans, it could be jarring, but like Alex was saying when we were talking about the chokehold a second ago, the only thing that you can expect from Sleep Token is the unexpected. So this is exactly the kind of thing they do, and I'm fully here for it.
I think in particular with this one, although there's the heaviness, which is the instant attraction to it, there's such a range in tone, in dynamics, in vocal range of notes that you can hear from Vessel's performance that I think does go under the radar, because you automatically hear the heaviness, and you'll go back to the offering, you go back to Hypnosis, you go back to all those kind of pit moments you know when you see live, and know that when you see the Summoning you're going to get that. But I think Vessel's performance in this does fly under the radar from that.
There's a bit, I think it's in the second chorus, where he holds the word like, and it goes up about like 6 to 8 times, I think, until it's just like dog whistle level.
It is incredible, and like you mentioned with the drum work, Dan, it's absolutely beautiful. The double bass work again pushes the song forwards and works beautifully with the dissonant guitars. Even hearing Vessel put some of the screams in after the first chorus, you kind of don't expect that necessarily. It gets dropped into Sleep Token music on the odd occasion, and hearing that,
we've not heard it like this since Gods, I don't think.
No, but in hearing that, you just think, oh, okay, and you know that like shit's going down and this is getting serious.
The third song we got was Granite. This is my favourite of the 4.
You know what? I think I'm with you on that.
I
don't know if it's because of the Summoning. Everyone talking about the Summoning is that I back the underdog. But there's something about Granite that is so addictive and just keeps pulling me back in. And again, I think it's down to the vocal melody.
Yeah. There is something really, really addictive about the way this whole song sort of like sneaks through you. Like, and it's like, I don't know, it's the way that some of the vocals are delivered. Like, when he delivers the line, I was more than just a body in your passenger seat. You are more than just somebody I was destined to meet. It's just hard, sometimes, I don't know, it's hard to put into words, this band. Like, other than just, I feel very captivated by this song. This one more than the most of the 4. And I just loved it.
I think the production for this one stands out to me a lot. I love the layered synths and the layered vocals. You're hearing several kind of stacks of this underneath, where it's very carefully thought out from with how they're creating and composing the song, which really adds to that vibe of it being different. I think being the underdog almost, like you said, you kind of get that familiar riffage coming in, and the breakdown kind of bursts in at those moments, but you still it's those moments where they pull back, I think, where it really makes it interesting, and the range of Sleep Token can be like really explored, which is fantastic, and I think is one of the main draws to the band.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people criticising Sleep Token, somewhat fairly, I think Higher is maybe the best example of this. A lot of their songs, they're beautifully well crafted, but they're a bit of like a proggy template of that. It starts with like just the vocals or just the vocals and a keyboard, and then it kind of builds and builds and builds and builds. Whereas on these new songs, the heavy bit at the end isn't seen as like the whole point of the song. In fact, I think on Granite, I prefer the lighter bit at the start.
Yeah.
And I think they're kind of showing that they don't just have this one trick. They'll do all kinds of stuff and do it really well.
Yeah, and I think that's shown more on Aqua Regia as well. Is that's a song that could have gone that way, where it builds and builds and builds and goes
and
crazy
they
heavy
restrained. They didn't.
They
need
restrained,
it.
yeah, and it was more about just sitting back into the vibe of that song and riding it all the way through, which I think is, really fun.
My God, I love that piano solo.
Mm.
You like didn't expect that first time. Well, first time we heard it was seeing it live, and kind of not knowing what was going on, then just seeing Vessel up there and performing it, and then obviously having the chance to listen back to it after it's released. It's just so out of the blue. It's not what you expect necessarily from them, but then again, like we've mentioned a couple of times, what do you expect from them when you get a song? There's always something different to come out of it. But every time I've gone back and listened to that, even if I'm doing something else while kind of just listening to the track and having it on, I pretty much stop what I'm doing just to take it in, because although I guess this is, whether you class it as that or not, they're in the realms of heavy music, of alternative music, of metalcore, of metal, whatever you want to frame them as. But when the fuck do you ever hear a piano solo in that kind of genre, even if it's on like a ballad kind of thing? You don't even hear that in really pop music. That's a very blues kind of thing. It's very old school. It's a jazz thing. It's something you don't hear in popular music nowadays at all. So for them to kind of bring something like that into, I guess, the mainstream with where they're heading with this and the popularity they've had, it's a very bold move and unique, and it's really fucking paid off.
But that's the thing, there's like, the most interesting music comes from when loads of styles and genres are thrown together, and I think that's why Sleep Token have deservedly so had this huge boom recently.
I think this set of 4 songs here is a really, really great showcase of everything that Sleep Token does.
Yeah.
Because you've got the heaviness of the Summoning, you've got kind of maybe the slow build of Granite, you've got just kind of a cool anthem in Chokehold, and then you've got Aqua Regia, which is a bit more of like a chilled out kind of vibe. There's a bit of everything they do here, and it gets me really excited for the upcoming album.
My hope is that a lot of the people that have found Sleep Token through these new songs will now go back and listen through those 2 albums.
I think a lot of them are, which is great, because it was obviously the Summoning that like grabbed everyone's attention, but from seeing what people are saying online and where they're taking deep dives now into the rest of their discography, they seem to be really like encapsulated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By what they're listening to, which is exactly what it was like for us when we first really listened to them.
It's good to be able to, like, as it's happening, sort of take note of it, because it felt like for a long time Sleep Token was like this really incredible secret that everyone had kept. And now we can all sort of sing from the rooftops about how amazing they are. And
it's great as well that no one seems to be gatekeeping. Everyone seems to just be really, really pleased that people are discovering Sleep Token.
Because you always get that thing where it's like everyone loves a band until they blow up, and then suddenly like they've sold out or whatever, or like you said, gatekeeping starts. Whereas this has been one of the most like wholesome, like glow up of a band that I've seen in a while, where everyone's just enjoying it. And
my only hope is that the new fans are just as respectful towards the band and like their identities and stuff as existing fans have been.
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? Like a band that is anonymous in any way, as soon as things start to get bigger, there's that subsection of the fan base that has this burning desire to unmask them, and I kind of understand it. Like,
and it's fine if you want to go and find out who they are, but don't then spoil it for other people. I guess, and just be respectful.
Yeah,
it's the whole thing. Don't ruin it for them.
Absolutely.
What a great tetralogy of songs.
There it is again. Moving on from Sleep Token, we've got a new one from Enter Shikari. Please set me on fire.
Please.
Plus,
Dan, you're a massive Shikari fan. Do you want to go first?
I'm a massive Shikari fan, and when I first heard this song, I thought, it's all right. It's a single. It's not really grabbing me, but the more and more I listened to it, the more I kind of gelled with it, and the more I liked it. I still don't love it. I don't think it's ever going to be in like my top 10 Shikari songs, but I really like kind of the driving chuggy guitar in the background that almost feels like it's going sort of. The imagery is like elevating up some steps, like starting low down and like going higher up, and that kind of call in the chorus of "I want to be ash in the atmosphere" becomes kind of catchier and catchier every time I listen to it. So yeah, it's been a grower for sure, but I am enjoying it.
See, surprising that you said that, because I've always said on this podcast that I've struggled with Shikari because of the. I know I said it about Sleep Token that it's good there, but with Shikari they're so unpredictable sometimes that for me it's like I can't get a foothold on what they're trying to do. This is the first time I've heard a Shikari song and instantly loved it from the first listen, and it's the first time I've heard one and thought everything that I have liked about them before across a bunch of songs is all on display in one song. That's the reaction that I had from it. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is really, really cool. I really liked it. Yeah, I don't have much to say. I just thought it was a fun, anthemic song. I think the thing for me is like I've always found that sometimes their electronic elements are a bit jarring. Particularly like I really like a song like Arguing Thermometers, but sometimes that song is like from like one genre to the next quite jarringly, whereas this one was like, okay, it's the perfect blend for me of what they do with guitars and stuff and things like that, and the electronic stuff. So I thought it was great. I really, really like this song.
Nice. James.
And now you both look at me. I loved the chorus of vocals to start it off. Like that was like a cool thing. And there are parts of the instrumentals that I do enjoy, but the electronics do put me off. And I think I've said this before, there's always been parts to when I've heard Shikari stuff where I'm like, I can pick it out and I'm like, yeah, okay, I quite like that moment, or I like this about the song. But then there'll be something else that will happen, like you say in a jarring sense, where it just completely puts me off. And I'm just like, as I'm trying to get into it and it's starting to pull me in, it's like I'm just getting shoved like 3 or 4 more steps backwards. I can't seem to, like you say, you're getting the foothold now. I can't even seem to see the foothold. I think there's some of it I can appreciate. I think the vocals in particular, the range in his notes, dynamics, and his tone are on full display, I think, in this track in particular, and it is very impressive. But I do struggle to just ever see a time that I'm actually going to be able to get into Shikari and be like, yeah, I like this song, because not necessarily for what I just look for in music, but I guess what can pull me into a song, like the fluidity, sometimes the journey it takes on it. It feels like with most of their songs in terms of structure, there is no clear journey or structure to it necessarily, because it can go, if you think most strong structures going like an A, B, verse, struck, chorus, and then you kind of got your bridge necessarily in its most basic form, where you can look at a Sleep Token where they can throw in a D or an E. It feels like with an Enter Shikari, you're going like A, Z, C, Y, L. And it's like there's no clear pathway in terms of it flowing for me. And for that, it just can't, it doesn't connect with me and I can't resonate with it.
Whereas I think with like existing Shikari fans, they can sort of sense that A, Z, C, F structure is like, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I think it's a band that like they know very clearly what their identity is musically and sonically, and I feel like once you're hooked in as a fan, you're in there with them. But it's just for me and you, James, I think it's like often felt like we're on the outside looking in and going, everyone else seems to understand this chaos that I can't get my head
like when you
around.
turn up to a party late and everyone's already really drunk and making references to something else that's happened during the night, and you're not in on any of the jokes or anything, so you're a bit like, I don't really fit in here. I guess.
Where for me, this song was arriving to the party early and getting drunk with everyone. So,
But I do feel like you could probably go through a majority of, but like, not necessarily, I can't think of bands off the top of my head, but more from just a personal level where if you followed a band, not necessarily from the start of their career, but from early on in their career, and you've seen their flow through albums and if they've changed genres or how they developed over time, you can kind of get with them. But then when you're just jumping in on album number 3 then or album number 5 or song release number 1 from album 7, you can't necessarily get a proper fit for that band and be able to connect to it in a certain way. So that's where I think older fans like yourself can kind of see a bit more out of it and know the structure of how they developed over time. But then for me, where this is me kind of coming into it off of recent singles for the most part and being introduced to them, I don't have that connection.
I do hope we go on to review the upcoming album on the podcast, because I feel like I've got a funny feeling that this single is going to be the easiest song to listen to on the album.
Oh, Christ.
yeah, one thing
It's only 30 minutes. From the track listing, it's only going to be 30 minutes long.
That feels like...
Which gives, I think, potential for it to be a bit of an erratic,
chaotic kind of experience.
kind of thing, yeah.
So you say something like that and it intrigues me, and then I'm going to look out for it and be like, okay, I'm interested to hear it. But I immediately also
I'm interested to hear what you think after you hear it.
Already thinking like, oh fuck, what am I letting myself in for here?
I'll put it this way: a lot of fans think the album cover for the new album is a bit of a reference to the old album of Flash Flood of Colour.
That's literally what I'm just scrolling Twitter to find a tweet that I saw that was about that. Yeah, I mean, it looks from what you can see, the Flash Flood of Colour album is like a neon band logo, I guess, in a forest. The single artwork, or is this the album artwork or just the single artwork?
Yeah, it's the album artwork as well.
The album artwork for the upcoming album is what looks like a burnt forest with a fire lily on the front, which is a flower that blooms after forest fires. So I guess,
and it's in the same kind of shade of red as the lights,
as the neon light. So it's like,
I don't know if James has seen this yet.
And also with Flash Flood of Colour Bit just celebrating its 10-year anniversary, it's almost like...
Yeah, I can see similarities.
To me, it conjures up the thought of like the messages and the warnings they were trying to give us about, you know, the environment, the world, you know, socially, politically, environmentally. All those warnings that they were talking about on A Flash Full of Colour have now, you know, come to fruition in the real world. And now it's like, this album is like, how do we live with the consequences and how do we try and like fix what's already been burnt down to the ground. I think that's just a really, even for me as like a sort of fan, someone on the edge of being a fan, it's a very exciting like way to look at an album, almost like a sequel, like a sequel 10 years later.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It may well be.
Should we move on?
Let's move on to some hardcore.
Jesus Piece are on fire at the moment. Their first single, An Offering to the Night, I thought was sick as fuck. And Gates of Horn is no different for me. This band makes me go feral. Like I genuinely think if I was to see them live, it would be the most insane in a pit I think I could ever possibly go. And that trumps seeing like when we've seen Knock Loose and Turnstile live. No, I just think this song's fucking awesome. I don't really have any deep thought out analytical viewpoints to share. It's just cool.
I don't either, but when I hear this song, I immediately, just like you, Alex, I'd put myself in a live situation and think of how mental it'd be.
It's just, they're just cool. They're just a really cool, fun band to listen to. They're heavy as shit, and what I really like is that we're in an age at the moment where like we're embracing a lot of things that I guess people used to think were cringe, like nu metal's cool again. And it's the same sort of thing that, like, when I watch Jesus Piece music videos, it looks like it's from, like, 2003, but, like, in a really cool way. And it's, like, it's just fun that bands are embracing, like, that, like, the gritty, like, almost in a way, like, cheap-looking, like, style of aesthetic. But for them, it works and suits what their sound is perfectly. I just think they're fucking cool. So, yeah.
My main takeaway was that I thought the vocals were nice, but it was the instrumentals that really kind of stood out in this, and I think elevated the song. Groovy moments that just make you want to two-step, which is always a good sign with hardcore music anyway. But it's the unrelenting like little flurries of double bass alongside like the riffs the drum performance drives it forward. Like I've said before with hardcore music, I think it's so important to have that, such a strong bass drum tone in that. Really pushes it on. It gives it that beat. It has a great wall of sound with the guitars and the bass alongside it. And I think as the song goes through, there's the progressions throughout it, and it just punches you every time. And I think, like you say, in a live scenario, this would be fantastic. I found that the times that I've gone back and listened to it, I've only gone really to listen to the instrumentals. I feel like I end up, not deliberately, but I end up zoning out the vocals, and I'm just listening to how strong, how much of a driving force that musicality is, and how much it's going to just punch you in the face when you see it live.
I think Alex will punch you in the face when you see it live as well.
Yes,
I
will.
welcome it. Let's go.
That's one thing though that for me, like, I listened to their debut album Only Self, and I love it, but the vocals on that album are sort of at one gear all the way through, which is fine. That album's still amazing, but it does seem that Aaron, the vocalist, has made a huge step up in his delivery. Like, he's hitting different like registers of his screams, different sort of styles of screams. Like, he's got really low gutturals, sort of mids and some highs in there, and then I think it's the guitarist or the bassist, I'm not sure, throws in like some backing vocals here and there as needed. But it's always fun to see a vocalist, like, it conjures to mind like the step that Randy took on Sacrament for Lamb of God, where it was like, oh, okay, he's not just screaming at mids all the way through. It's still all heavy and it's still all screaming, but there's a lot of
more depth,
a lot more work has gone into it. There's a register and depth and a lot more variation. It makes it far more interesting to listen to. So, yeah, really commend that band for the 2 songs they've put out so far. I'm excited for the album. Finally, we got a new song from Fall Out Boy.
And it's something a bit different, isn't it?
Something a bit different. I saw a tweet recently that said Fall Out Boy's albums best to worst are just chronological order, which, if that is the case, means that anything that comes out that's new should suck arse. But does it?
However, we've only got this single to go on so far, and I think it's quite good.
I think it's very good, yeah. It's fun, isn't it? I like the song.
It's good to hear them kind of having guitar front and centre in the mix again, and being the focus of the whole song, really. It's got a bit of a pop-punky vibe to it. It's not quite throwing all the way back to classic Fall Out Boy yet. It's still got kind of a mix of the old and new, but I think that's fine. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think it would be disingenuous for a lot of these sort of iconic bands of the genre to just churn out, like, you know, a generic... Like, they could have easily, like you said, they could have just written a song that sounded like old Fall Out Boy. Feels like they've just tried to write something that
and people would have lapped it up as well, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. And it was the same thing...
Me included.
We said the same thing with Paramore when they dropped This Is Why. It was like, they could have just written a pop-punk song and people would have gone goo-goo gaga crazy for it. But it's, I think, far more interesting to write something that's like this, that's got that stuff in there, but there's enough of clearly what they want to be doing. It just sounds like a band that just want to write what they want to write, and it feels like they've sort of fallen back in love with their older sound a little bit, and that's what's prompted this, which is all you can really ask for, isn't it?
It sounds like Patrick just has like a bit more... It sounds like he's having a bit more fun just in the vocal delivery. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like a new... It's like they've taken like kind of a new lease of life by revisiting the older aspects of their sound. But yeah, it just sounds like he's enjoying himself through the vocals. I don't know what it is. I also really, really love the bit. It's not quite a pre-chorus. It's more like the end of the verse, but the kind of melody changes up a bit in that... I can't remember the exact lyrics, but I didn't want to go. Would just be nice to be invited, or something along those lines. Yeah. That little bit there is a really nice little melody, I think.
I do feel like he is a really, really underrated vocalist within the genre, and this was like a really strong reminder of like, actually, Patrick Stump has a very, very impressive vocal range and tone, and he's fun to listen to.
Do you know who else is fun to listen to? James, when he's given opinions on popular punk bands.
I was just watching you two just constantly go back and forth, and it's like, okay, I get there. But interestingly, I don't know. Well, I was never a massive Fall Out Boy fan growing up. I just never got into it when they were popular. But I really enjoyed this. I feel like you kind of touched on it, Dan, as well, but it's like it's simple. It feels like it knows what it needs to be in a song. They hit every marker they need to. It's got that nostalgia for old fans, a bit of something different for new fans, and to get people into it. A nice catchy chorus. Like, it's really, really well written in terms of hitting every spot. I think for a band that hasn't released music in a number of years to be able to come back from and kind of make a little bit of a statement and say, yeah, we're still here, we're coming back, don't forget who we are. And yeah, it was just really enjoyable. I was saying to Alex, it's something a little bit more niche, but there was like an old band called the Winery Dogs, which was a Mike Portnoy band. Surprise, surprise. There's Bingo.
Super niche, that is.
For those of you playing Portnoy Bingo along at home, there's another one.
Go.
Ding.
It's been a little while.
It has been a while. But he had a band called the Winery Dogs, and with a guitarist and vocalist called Richie Kotzen, and their vocal tone is really distinctive. And I could hear that immediately when I heard the chorus in this in particular, and it's a really, really nice vocal tone that cuts through the mix perfectly. It's powerful, and you kind of hear it, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm listening to this, and it does pull you in. And yeah, I was never a big Fall Out Boy fan. I don't think I ever would be, and that's just how it would be. But for like this is a song in particular, really, really enjoyable. I kind of went into it knowing this was released, and we're like, okay, we'll talk about this and kind of go through it. And on that first listen, probably even like half-arsing it in terms of, okay, let's just kind of like touch into it just so I can get an idea of what I'm going in for. And immediately I was like, okay, I'm liking this, and just kind of paying more attention, more focus to it. And it really did become something that I was like, this is a catchy song, it's good, it could hit on the radios, and people would connect with it. So that's it out of the reviews for this month. We will have a brief look at the upcoming releases next month, and we'll find out what we're most excited for. It is another quiet month though, at the beginning of the year. So far released that we know of, we've got In Flames with Foregone on February 10th, Pierce the Veil with The Jaws of Life also on February 10th, Graphic Nature are releasing their first album, A Mind Waiting to Die, on February 17th, and Steel Panther releasing On the Prowl on February 24th. What are we most excited for, boys?
Oh, hold on, there's much more than that on February the 10th. We've also got Yumi at 6.
Oh, okay.
With their new album, which name I've forgotten.
Truth Decay?
That's it.
Truth Decay, yeah.
And Paramore.
Oh, was not on my website source.
Also on February the 10th.
Okay.
This Is Why is coming out next month. Is that the name of the album? This Is Why?
I think it is, yeah.
That's off the top of my head as well.
And I think it's February the 10th as well. I've just... something's telling me there was a lot going on that day.
What are we most excited for? It's a lot.
Graphic Nature.
Graphic Nature. We love Graphic Nature.
We like it.
If you like great heavy music with a bit of nu metal in there, just listen to Graphic Nature. Those are my words of wisdom for today. Listen to Graphic Nature because they're great.
And we've only really heard singles from them so far. This being their first full release, it's going to be the first time they're going to be able to really put a big album out there, and for people to really digest a lot more of their work in one go, which I think is going to really benefit them. It's
going to be a really fun album. I am sort of intrigued by the Pierce the Veil album. I've not heard a single. I've not heard any of the singles yet, but people on Twitter seem to be saying that it's somewhat of a return to form. I'll take their word for it. Should we listen to that album?
Potentially.
Yeah, it's worth a try, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, we're silly, aren't we?
So silly.
Should we move on to the next segment, whatever it may be?
Yeah, don't worry, I'm not looking forward to any albums, don't worry about it.
Oh, sorry, go on, Dan. What are you looking for?
No, don't worry, carry on.
Dan, what are you looking forward to?
No, it doesn't matter now.
Go on.
I thought we were sticking to the bit.
Oh, let's stick to the bit.
Okay.
Let's move on.
You meet at 6.
Say. Comment time.
I'm going to find some comments. Michael Davids has commented on a clip from when we saw Casey in Bristol, where we put out Hell in full. They've said, I can't express the numerous feelings this band makes me feel. They're like no other band out there.
Yeah, you're spot on.
Very true. I think, like we said, post-gig from that as well. Like, the emotion you could feel in that room. It was very strong. It was very powerful.
Yeah, if you want a band to really get in your feels too, that's probably number one.
We forced James, a self-confessed metalhead, to listen to 100 Gex and react to it. Corrupt 8 Boss has commented saying, have him executed immediately. 7 Gex is outrageous.
Yes, we made James give a Gex rating out of 100.
I think 7 was generous.
And Listen, if you like 100 gex, fair enough. It's the whole point of music, innit? It's all subjective, but not for us. 'Cause it was shit.
On our 2022 Ragamuffin Awards video, Ant Sibley agreed with me, saying, "Loved the Sully album, glad it made the cut." Thanks, Ant.
Yeah, that was a great album. Very, very good album. More people should have been talking about it.
On the every Slipknot song tier list, Raphael said, "So only mainstream is good. Their bonus tracks have too much potential."
I mean, some of them are decent. Like, if you want to go by bonus tracks, like Till We Die's a big one. That's
Till
up
We Die is
there,
great.
That's nice.
Child of Burning Time I quite like.
That's not, and considering they're both more Labour's gone is a fair
Yeah.
shout.
Scream,
I think it is, and Don't Get Close are poor off of Volume 3.
yeah, pretty poor.
Iowa didn't have any.
Interloper
wanna
demo
get-
off
Interloper
self-titled,
demo,
fucking brilliant. The
Despise.
Despise demo is amazing.
They're
They're all great songs. Get
Get
This.
This was a bonus track. That's a banger.
Um,
And then after that, there's not really
there's not
any
really much. I don't.
bonus
I
tracks.
don't know any off of the two latest albums.
There were two or three. It was like Laugh, Funny, and something else on 0.5, which didn't stand out. And I don't think there were any for We're Not Your Kind or The End so far. So,
Ridiculous.
I mean, did you really think something like The Virus of Life would end up going in the top tier?
Some people did. I've seen some.
Oh, that's a poor taste.
Thanks for your comment there, Raphael.
Yeah.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Sorry.
I think that was your name.
Didn't mean to have a dig.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments.
Yes, keep leaving more. If whether they be positive, antagonistic, we love them all.
It all helps the algorithm.
Cheers.
So we started off 2023. We went to Bristol. We went to the Fleece. We went to Casey's first show for The Return. Dan, I'll let you take the lead because I think you were the one that introduced me and Alex to Casey.
Yeah, I dragged you both along to it. Casey are back, and they're not being very quiet about it. They put on an incredible show. The whole tour looks brilliant, and just so much love in that room. So much, like, from the moment they were walking out on stage, there was just so much applause, so many people cheering. And I think they were quite overwhelmed by it. They seemed to take a couple of songs to maybe relax and get back into things, but once they did, man, what a show, what a performance.
I think you could see from the set as well because they played the two new ones first straight away. And then right afterwards, he was just like, okay, now we're going to play some old ones, some ones that you know a little bit more. And I think that was when the relaxed feel came in because that being the live debut of two new songs. I think for any band, for the most part, it's going to be able to be like, okay, we need to get this right. It's got to land. It's got to be a good performance. But then when you're back to the familiar territory, even if it's been some time, it's something you're used to. It's something you've done time and time again in front of thousands and thousands of people at that point as well. So, yeah, once you're going, they just smashed it, going from song to song to song. A 16-song set.
Yeah, it was amazing. They strike me as a band that have a pretty close relationship with their fan base that feels very community, sort of has a community vibe to it. And I think the singer even said that he recognised faces in the crowd from when they last played, and they hadn't played for over 3 years at that point, 4 years at that point. So yeah, I think they were just... You could tell that it meant a lot to everyone in the room, really, not just the band. It was great for a lot of the fans to be able to hear a lot of those songs live again, or in our case, live for the first time that we never thought that we would hear. So yeah, just very lucky that we were able to go, and very lucky that they're a band again.
Yeah, looking forward now to seeing what else they're going to do.
Yeah, I'd quite like an EP maybe, or if they want to jump straight into a full length. Please, that would be nice as
Yeah, I
well.
wouldn't complain about that either.
Lovely. So then I think we'll kind of tie it up with the second and fourth gig this month because, Dan, you got to go and see them twice.
Hell yeah.
Me and Alex got to go to the first one in Birmingham, and that was Sleep Token. And they just released 2 songs out of nowhere that we've already reviewed earlier on, which was Choke on the Summoning. We got to see the live debut of Aqua Regia and Granite.
It's nice that Alex got to see that just before he dies.
Basically, I've been coughing the entire recording. If I edit out,
I didn't think about the fact that all the coughing would be edited out. Yeah, that wasn't a threat.
No.
No.
But yeah, the venues are packed. You could tell based on recency as well, that Sleep Token have just blown up, and tickets were sold out. You could barely move in the venues, which in some ways is a good sign, because you want venues to sell out and bands to pack it out and have success. But for a lot of people, like including like me, if I want to get in a mosh pit, we need a bit of space in there. And I think that was my one negative, I'd say, from seeing them in Birmingham at the O2, is that it's just, I couldn't mosh, not properly.
Yeah, it was a similar situation in Bristol, really. Like, it was almost like everyone wanted to be in that front section, but there just wasn't the space for it. Every time the pit kind of attempted to open up, it ends up just being a kind of crowd surge and a bit of a jump around for a bit. But all that aside, how great was Sleep Token, man?
Oh, fucking incredible. Every time I see them, I think after a while I end up forgetting about how good they are live, and the stage presence. You kind of just stand there taking it all in, also not knowing where to look on the stage. And after being a bit of time since we've seen them, it was just like overwhelming, I guess, in a way again, that even after like kicking it off straight with Chokehold and then the Summoning, first of all, being new songs to see live for the first time, like for us, is incredible. But just to watch again and just be like, oh yeah, fuck, now I remember why I love this band so much, and that I make my way to go and see them and buy tickets to go to their own tours that they're headlining, because it's that live experience, I think, with bands that really helps you connect with them and enjoy their music on a deeper level. Yeah, they just fucking killed it. And I think props to North Lane as well. I wasn't the biggest fan of them going into it, not in terms of a bad thing, but I just haven't really delved into their discography and listened to that much. But like for me, even like the riffs fucking hit, and like the small pit that opened up for them, it called my name, and I ran in, and they were just incredibly fun live. You can tell they had energy, and they were trying to really put it out there, and people were receptive, and they enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, North Lane were great, but like Sleep Token, I just always find them captivating. Like, even though they've got heavy parts of their songs which you really want to mosh to, most of the time I just find myself kind of stood there in awe, just sort of taking in how great Vessel's vocals sound live, how talented the drummer is, and just like the stage presence and the whole performance of each member of the band, as well as the production. Everything was just brilliant, I think. And it was great for me to go from seeing them in Birmingham, which was a fairly big venue, I think 3,500 capacity, and then going to Bristol, which, although isn't loads smaller, because of the layout of it, it feels like a much more intimate venue. Like, wherever you are in the crowd, you're still fairly near the front. So it was really cool, in my opinion, to be able to be near the front and be able to kind of see a lot more of the details of the performance, the musicianship and everything. And again, just be blown away by them even more and high, sort of more up close, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't got much to add, really. I mean, we've said it. Something that we've said before is it's like, it is almost like a spiritual thing to see Sleep Token live, especially when the whole crowd gets involved in the way that they do. It feels like, like a spiritual, like a ritual, I guess, which is the point. That's like the way that they present themselves. What's been really cool for me to see is I guess the freedom with which the other band members are starting to behave, and like, the first time we saw them, when it was I think it was Heavy Music Awards. Was that the first time we saw them?
Yeah, it was.
It felt like it was all about Vessel, and that was the focus, and the rest of the band were there to act as backup, if that makes sense. And every time we've seen them, each member has started to sort of become more and more expressive and more their own identity, despite
you're right. It's like they portray a personality now just through the way they move and the way they act on the stage.
Yeah, and they're all interacting with each other as well, which is really nice.
Also at the Bristol gig, there was someone filming it on a Nintendo DS. So
props to them. That's good.
Hit me up on Picto Chat.
Just respect for the grind on that.
That's incredible. Picto Chat. Brilliant. Last gig for us to talk about is Holding Absence in Oxford.
I mean, where do we begin with this? Because this was a special day.
This was probably the most significant day in our podcast history so far.
No, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, we hosted a live podcast and Q&A with Holding Absence before the gig at Truck Store in Oxford. A massive thank you to everyone that came down. Thank you to the band. Thank you to Tyler for filming and helping us out.
Thank you to Truck Store.
All of our mates that helped us out throughout the day and in the lead up to it.
And really, not just the stuff on the day. Like since the whole time we've been doing this, we're really grateful to have not just our friends support us on it, but a lot of people that we wouldn't have met if we hadn't done this. So this is where we've got to, thanks to you.
Yeah, it felt, the whole day was like a massive like pinch me moment because it just didn't seem like it was actually real. I don't know. We're just sort of gushing now, but I don't know, to be able to like start doing this in lockdown as a way to sort of just keep chatting to each other because we didn't have gigs to go to, and then we end up getting to interview one of our favourite bands
in just over 2 years.
Is pretty surreal. So
yeah, so like a massive thank you to Holding Absence for coming out, because again, to do it before a show as well, didn't have to do that. And just having people actually turn up and really, really engage, ask questions. You could see some of them had thought about it, I think, as well, and get the opportunity to kind of meet the band afterwards. That's always a nice thing to be able to do with the people you look up to. And I think that's also a testament then to the bands you like, and it makes you kind of enjoy them even more. So that's always nice to see. And yeah, like once again, just thank you to everyone that turned up, and thanks to everyone for the support for it. But
and if it's something you want to see us do more of, like tweet us, tweet Truck Store, tweet your favourite bands if they're going through Oxford. Let them know that you want them to come and do this with us, or just anyone you want us on the podcast. Just tell them to come on.
We will try.
We'll get them on.
To bring it back on course slightly, then we then got to see them live at Oxford for the second time in like 15 months roughly, because they played October 21, I think it was.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to the start of the gig and talk about Lastel. So one thing that was great about this tour is Holding Absence had local bands from every date playing first. For Oxford, it was Lastel, a band that are so cool, really amazing to watch live. They have this really sort of ethereal, dream-like, sort of melodic hardcore sound going on. They were amazing, and it's just, again, and I imagine it was the same for fans all across the tour, but there was a sense of pride in seeing a hometown band being represented in a show like that to a sold-out crowd.
Yeah, and I expect that's part of the reason why the venue was so full so early on. Like people were there to see Lastel, to see Void of Vision as well, who I think are a new favourite amongst our friend group, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So their set was really impressive, and it's just a great example of like sometimes we get a bit swept up in going to gigs that we don't always see support bands just because of travelling, trying to get dinner beforehand, all that sort of thing. So it's just when we have the opportunity to see a band that we've never seen before or heard before, and they are as good as that, it's always feels very lucky.
Yeah, it was a fantastic show. After looking at the set list before, kind of having the anticipation a little bit, but then mixing it up and like starting right off with Monochrome, like for me in particular, I fucking loved that. And I think I kind of was like, took it in for a minute, and then I was like, cool, I'm going to the pit straight away. And that was where I lived for the rest of it. And just the high energy, it was lovely to see just a packed room in Oxford.
I think that's my main takeaway from it, really, is that Oxford doesn't have alternative bands roll through very often.
No.
And when they do, there's not always like the energy there and the turnout that it deserves. But especially comparing it to the last time we saw Holding Absence in that room, where I think we arrived fairly late because we'd all been at work during the day, but we arrived fairly late and it was still not a full room. It was still like maybe 3/4 full. We could just sort of arrive and stand at the back kind of thing and just watch. But that room was packed from the minute we got there, and we got there before Lastel started.
I think that's a testament to them, like how they've promoted it in terms of having the locality of the shows and really pushing it, and how much they've grown over the past year.
That's the main thing, I think, is how far Holding Absence have come as a band since they were last there.
But yeah, their set was absolutely incredible. I don't think there's enough adjectives like positive that I can use to really describe the emotions feeling that and the enjoyment of seeing them live again. They've just fast become, I think, ours, like individually, but definitely by far one of my favourite bands. And just shot right at the list. And the fact that we've seen them, I think I've seen them 6 times, I think, since October 2021, which is mad to think of on just for any band in such a short space of time.
One of the busiest bands in the world.
It is, and there's a lot of respect for them, for like the hustle, the grind they put through, the touring that is relentless for them that they go on, and knowing what they've got in this year coming up as well with festivals and probably more touring with album number 3 in the works and on the way potentially. There isn't really many bands more hardworking, I think, than them.
Today's discussion, we're going to be talking about which bands we think are going to have the best 2023, whether it's up-and-comers, established bands that are about to have a whirlwind of a year. It could be anything. Who's got a suggestion they want to throw out first?
Well, should we get the obvious one out of the way? Sleep Token are going to own 2023.
Absolutely.
They've already done it.
And it's January.
Yeah, and literally the second week of January, and they're putting out 2 songs like Chokehold and The Summoning, and just completely blowing up, blowing everyone away, blowing all their peers out the water. And they've still got an album to come. Like, the possibilities are endless with this band for this year.
For like the first few days into January, immediately they're touring with Architects around Europe. Then they're doing their own headline sold-out tour. And like you say, it's not even the end of the first month. They haven't released the full-length album yet. There's going to be festival appearances, without a doubt, somewhere this summer.
Their first headline festival appearance, I believe, at Takedown.
So they've got a Takedown Festival on Saturday, 8th of April in Portsmouth for that lovely return. But I think there's going to be more festival appearances in the summer, with album 3 coming out. Bound to be at least one other headline tour happening this year in the UK. If not, maybe we could squeeze in 2. They're going to be going around Europe. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in America. I think they're just going to become one of the most talked about bands in heavy music this year, and there is no fucking stopping them.
Well deserved as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Another band I think is going to have a huge year is Harriet. Profound Morality was an amazing EP. It was like a little taster sample of what that band can do. I'm hoping that we get some new music from them this year and that they tour. I think they're already starting to book up the first half of the year.
Yeah, there's a few things being announced so far.
Hopefully a good festival run. I've got a feeling, I don't know, I've just got this feeling about them that they're going to just sort of take that next big step this year.
They've got all the right people talking about them. Sam from Architects has been giving them shout outs left, right and centre from what I've seen.
Matt Heafy, not Matt Healy, shouted them out as well. Yeah, they're just a band that's making really fun, brutal, heavy music, and that's what's exciting about the UK scene at the moment is, like, I can't think of any 2 bands that sound the same.
Yeah,
like you think about
the thing, yeah.
Sleep Token, Loathe, Harriet, Graphic Nature. They're all and so many more. Malevolence. They're all amazing heavy bands in the UK. None of them sound the same, and none of them sound like anything else prior as well. So it's a very exciting time, especially for the UK scene. I mean, the rest of those bands I just mentioned as well, I'm sure are all going to have amazing years this year. Yeah.
I've got one that I think could sneak it in for the last little part of the year, depending on anything that could be announced beforehand, and that'd be While She Sleeps. I think with the next album in the works, they've been very quiet for a while, unless you're kind of part of the Patreon. You're not seeing any tours, you're not seeing many live shows, you're not seeing any other singles being released apart from like the special edition ones last year. They've been teasing a lot on their Patreon, like I mentioned, and with that Ali Pali show, I feel like they're going to blow it out of the water in terms of... I think every time we see them, first of all, it's like a reminder of, like, fuck, I sleep on this band a little bit sometimes in terms of seeing them and the experience of that, because they put on such a show, and it's always incredible. And we've seen them from 300 cap venues to 5,000 venues. We've seen everything for that. Album release shows, whatever it is, we've kind of been there. And then to see them to probably sell out Ali Pali and do something incredible for the stage they're at in their career, I think is going to be incredible. I think if new music's out around the same time, at least if it's singles, but perhaps an album, incredible. And I think they'll end the year incredibly strong and end up leading into, I think, what would be a possible career-defining 2024 for them.
I have a feeling they're going to do something incredibly innovative and special around this Ali Pali show.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's something like involved in the production at the actual gig, or some kind of media thing they do around it. I just have a feeling they're planning something very special.
It seems
which could make them have a big year, I think.
I've got another band that I think is going to have a great year. It pretty much hinges on the success of one night of the year. That's Bring Me the Horizon. I think there is probably a lot of pressure, but a lot of hype and anticipation about their Download headline slot. They more than deserve it. And I think, for all the years that like elitist metal fans have tried to keep them away from Download, it's going to be such a huge opportunity for them to prove all of those people wrong, and I think they will. And I think more people will come away from that set as new fans than they will, disgruntled or whatever.
As long as they give them the chance, that is.
Yeah. I think they're going to put on a hell of a show. I think, and, it's bold of me to say this, but I do think they're going to give Metallica and Slipknot a very big run for their money in terms of what was the best headlining set of the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed.
Because they have to, because those are two of the biggest bands in the history of this genre. And it's, I love both of those bands, but the time is coming soon for like a generational shift in who the top titans are. And I think this year's Download could be just that very last step that Bring Me need to be like certified icon status.
We should finally have a new album this
Well,
year
yeah,
as well.
that as well, yeah. Fucking hurry up. I'd love to hear a new album.
Another band that I think are going to have a very, very good 2023 are Enter Shikari. They've got a new album coming out. They're headlining Slam Dunk Festival. They're going on tour after tour after tour. They're doing like the same tour 3 times. Which is
weird.
Which is very interesting. And I'm
Same
looking
venues
forward
and
to
everything,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah. Just the supports that are different, I think. And
Are they all
maybe the set list, I don't know.
Are the venues small?
Relatively, yeah, smaller.
Because obviously
smaller
Shikari
than they
can
usually
sell.
do.
Yeah.
There's no Ali Palis or anything like that on
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I think they're going to have a great year. I think the album's going to be great. I've got a good feeling about it. They're going to smash Slam Dunk, and who knows what they're going to do later in the year. Maybe a big arena tour after that small one at the start of the year.
I feel like that whole running the same tour sort of for like 3 consecutive months could be a very, very interesting thing to look at, because quite often a band will be on tour, and if the dates don't match up with, your availability as a fan, you just have to miss it. And I wonder if it's almost like, well, instead of playing Ali and London date and doing Ali Pali once, we can do a smaller venue and do it 3 times in 3 months. And it's like all the people that could miss one date can go to a different one. And I just think, like, without getting too ahead of ourselves, it could be a very, very interesting model to sort of look at after the fact and see how successful it is and see if other bands mimic it.
It's almost like those tours that do like 3-night residences at small venues.
Yeah.
Only they've spread it out over 3 months instead of doing the 3 nights
In a row.
like 3 nights in Bristol, for example, then 3 nights in London. They're doing a night in Bristol, night in London, night somewhere else, and then a month later they're doing the same thing again. So in a way, it's the same as doing like residencies, but
Yeah.
they've spread it out.
And
which
then
is kind of cool.
for like the diehard fans that will go to like all 3 London dates every month, they're going to see different support bands. Which for a band of Shikari to be able to bring that many bands, essentially that many bands on one tour.
Well, yeah, it essentially means they're taking 6 bands out on tour.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. Yeah. So I think that's going to be pretty huge, actually.
Also, they're playing that new venue in London. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it looks really interesting. I think will bode well for
seems perfectly suited
the kind of
for them.
production that Shikari like to put on. So I'm excited for that one. I've got tickets for it.
Oh, which month?
I can't remember. Doing London and Bristol, one of them in February, I think. The other one in April. So we'll see.
Very exciting. Any other suggestions?
I think we talk about them enough as it is, but holding absence. Because with album number 3, with this tour that's just happened, how relentless they can be and the things they're doing, they top themselves every time. it just increases every time. They get better, they're growing, and the popularity's getting there, and I just don't see them missing. And
every year at the moment is a big year for Holding Absence.
that's the thing. It's like you can't rule them out at any point, and we could talk about them for days and the things that they've done and how much we enjoy their music. But to keep it short and simple, is they don't miss. They're killing it, and I have no doubt that this year again will be another incredible year for them.
It's time for the first album recommendation of the year. What would you boys like to recommend?
We've got a little bit of time off until our next gig. It's been pushed back so many times, and it's to go and see Beartooth once again. And a band that I love seeing live, a band that we've seen so many times. And I'm just going to go with my favourite album, which is Disease. I can't wait to hear a lot of these tracks live. I absolutely adore this album. And I think it's getting to the point now with knowing this is the next gig coming up and listening to some of their music again recently. It's been that reminder of like, yeah, fuck, this is why I love this band. And I think you can always go through phases when you listen to certain bands or certain albums where you kind of dip in and out over time, and then you see them at certain occasions or know something's coming up where it's like that gentle reminder. And I think it's those bands as well that you may not always listen to all the time, but pretty much every time they announce a tour, you're going to buy tickets. And this is kind of one of those bands. And just to kind of get back into that listening and remind myself and remind us of why we're going once again, why not give this album another spin?
Lovely.
I've just thought of one on the fly while we were recording today that I'm mainly targeting at James. It's Technology by Don Broco. Because
Sorry.
I'm really intrigued to hear.
Yeah,
what
that's
James
why I'm
thinks.
chuckling, because I can't wait to hear what James
Yeah,
thinks about
exactly.
Oh,
Like
Christ.
I reckon it could go either way. You could either love this or hate it, and I can't wait to hear which one it is.
Okay, well,
You've given them a chance live. I want to hear what you think after actually sitting down
and listening to it.
giving a critical analysis.
Okay, we shall see.
My recommendation comes in the form of an EP that was released all the way back in March of 2022, but has only recently found its way into my awareness. What was the word I'm looking for?
Rotations?
I don't know.
Musical rotations?
I've only just found
or
it.
how about just
I've
your
only just found it.
how about just your awareness?
It is a band called Throne, and the EP is called Extended Pain. Do you get it? Because EPs are extended plays.
Oh yeah,
Pretty clever.
That's good.
No, they're pretty fucking sick, I think, and they seem to just sort of appeared out of no. I mean, the fact that the EP was released like last year.
They've come into your awareness out of
They've come
nowhere.
into my awareness out of nowhere. They're really cool, and I just like it. If you like a little bit of beat down in your breakfast, listen to this in the morning. What am I saying?
How do you like your eggs in the morning? With a beat down.
With a beat down in it. Fuck. It's because we're wrapping it. It's because we're near the end of the podcast now, and I've run out of steam. As always, the recommendations are as much for you, the listener, as they are for us. There'll be a link to the playlist with all of these recommendations in the description of this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, don't worry, we do this every single month. We talk about the latest news, music and trends, and it's available on YouTube, Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, it is.
We do perfect gigs. We get people on. We talk about their perfect 4-band lineup, amongst other things. We have several of those on the channel and a few coming out soon, so keep an eye on those.
We've also been going to loads of gigs and we vlog every single one of them. So if you like the sound of that, check out the channel and subscribe.
We've got loads of content in the world of heavy and alternative music, so please, Dan just told you, subscribe. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Say goodbye, James.
Bye.
Bye.